I'm Peter Geschiere. I was for a long time professor of African anthropology in Leiden. Now I'm still at the University of Amsterdam and I'm one of the founders of CEFIS.
Can you
De camera hoeft echt niet in de camera te kijken, echt alleen naar Marina. Ik ook niet, ik ben ook niet.
Can you tell us something about the background of CEFIS? What is CEFIS and why was it
CEFIS originated with an initiative of Willem van Schendel. I should emphasize that. I'm sure you're going to interview him also. There was a conference at the time, that is 1991, I think, but you will correct me, when Minister Pronk was very interested in more broader debates on what development was, and he wanted to relate development also to history, which was a very daring step because development specialists in general are not that interested in history. They want to start from a clean, from the scratch, not much interest in history. And so Pronk, actually a collaborator of Pronk, organized a big conference on history and development in The Hague. During that conference, Willem van Schendel had the idea that we could try to make a network as a sequel to this conference, and Pronk was interested in that and was willing to put up some money. And so Willem created a committee with a few, only four Dutch people, but with a very important representation of different continents from the south. So there were two people from Asia, one colleague from the Caribbean, one colleague from Latin America, one colleague from, there were three, well, something like that. Three from Asia, depends on how big Asia is taken, what the frontiers of Asia are. And so,
can you tell me briefly how CEFIS was established?
At the time, early 90s, Minister Pronk there was a kind of uncertainty in the ministry what really development was, so he was very interested in broader developments about the background of, discussions about the background of development, the idea of development, and in that context he was interested. He organized a big conference on history and development. Out of that big conference, CEFIS was created.
What was the main objective of the program at that time?
Not only at the time, I think during the whole period that it existed of CEFIS, was the idea that development should take history much more seriously. Development experts in general tend to neglect history because they want to they want to have the idea that they start from the scratch. So this was historicizing development and very much from the perspective of the South, so from the countries, from the continents that were the main target of the development action. So the basic idea of CEFIS was always that the South should decide, the South should take the lead. Our colleagues from the South, the Dutch were only there as facilitators. The basic idea was also a South-South exchange. So not to break with the tendency of many academics in the South that they want to come north, but that they could learn much more from each other, and so South-South exchange.
And what was your role in CEFIS?
As a facilitator, as I said already, there were, in the beginning, there were 4 Dutch colleagues in the steering committee, and well, I found the workshop with the committee to start CEFIS, to launch CEFIS, was one of the most inspiring meetings I ever attended, especially because it was really discovery to see how different perspectives were. I learned a lot from my colleagues from the South.
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Mag heel eventjes, want u zei, zoals ik al gezegd heb, dat is in de film wat onhandig in het monteren. Dus misschien kunt u nog een keer zeggen, ik was werkzaam als solicitor. Facilitator.
My role was mainly the role of a facilitator. ID, ja, maar ik weet niet meer wat je
Nee,
kunt,
nee,
wat ik
nee,
bedoel.
nee, maar dat
Ja,
is goed,
zo,
hoor.
Ja.
Ja.
zo werkt het niet, sorry.
What did I ask? Oh yeah, what was so special of that first meeting?
Because it was a meeting a bit in. We were all quite blank. We had no idea where we wanted to go exactly. The main thing was historicized development and South-South exchange, but you can fill that in hundreds of ways. So it were very, very long discussions. And what was very interesting, well, the colleagues from the South were very, very sophisticated people, very sophisticated historians, very different in their outlook, and to see these different outlooks being confronted was very stimulating. Also for them, I think, not only for the Northerners.
How long have you been involved in the program?
About 10 years, but I don't know exactly. You.
And what made...
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's difficult how long exactly. I was there from the start. After 4 or 5 years, there was the idea that committee members should rotate, and so there was the idea was not to have everybody step down at the same time. I think I was one of the longest staying on from the original committee. And after that, I did still a lot for CEFIS. I was still, so there is a formal ending to my involvement, but practically CEFIS is so widespread in its activities that you keep being involved in one way or another.
In addition to that first meeting, what other very vivid memories do you have of the program that were like,
The conference, of course, the different conferences that took place. The first conference was a conference in Delhi, which again was very interesting because of its confrontation of very different views. Afterwards, we did a lecture tour with Achille Bimb and Mamadou Diouf along different Indian universities. That was very lively meeting. CEFIS had a lot of drama, so it was a confrontation that was not always easy, and sometimes people got very angry. In Delhi, a colleague from the Caribbean marched out of the meeting because he did not get enough attention and things like that. So that was, well, it was not always fun, but it was very interesting, very, and to all of us very instructive also.
What do you think that the impact has been of CEFIS on?
Well, CEFIS has had a very real impact in encouraging South-South exchange and showing academics from the South. The problem is always that a PhD from the North or a postdoc in the North has status. So if somebody from Cameroon gets a postdoc in Harvard or in Leiden or in Oxford, that is, or in Amsterdam, that is gives more status than a postdoc in Buenos Aires or in Delhi. But that is changing rapidly, and of course CEFIS is not the only factor that made a change, but CEFIS certainly contributed to this idea that for Africans it might be more interesting to work in Mexico City or in Delhi than go up to Amsterdam or Berlin or whatever. So that is one impact. In general, well, for me the impact was certainly how differently history and the history of development looks from the South, and how important it is, how difficult it is to avoid Eurocentric visions, and for me also that was very, I mean, I was always very conscious of the fact that Eurocentrism, seeing everything from the side of Europe is wrong and is very distorting, but it's very difficult to completely get rid of that tension, and to be very basic, I mean, the idea